on OBS, and now I have to go to, oh boy, and there we are. Okay. So as I was saying a minute ago, so this is a live stream of Community Rights US, weekly book club. A whole bunch of us connect every Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. Pacific time, and we talk about 10 or 15 pages of a book, and we are currently reading we're in the last 50 or 60 pages of the book that was kind of the Bible of the movement to dismantle corporate constitutional rights for many years, and it's called Defying Corporations, Defining Democracy, a book of history and strategy from the Program on Corporations, Law, and Democracy. And I don't have in front of me what specific pages we read this week, but if somebody wants to type in those numbers, that would be cool. But I just especially really loved Richard and Ward's long piece on 244, Asserting Democratic Control Over Corporations, a Call to Lawyers. I've had such an insane week that I'm just crossing my fingers that was even one of the readings that we were supposed to do this week. Was it? Anybody want to chime in?
Yes, definitely it was. It was 244. I don't know. It's like through page 250.
Excellent.
Something, whatever. It was starting on 244. It's 3 or 4 of them. Let's just wing it. I think that's good. I agree with you. I like that one too.
Yeah.
Let me just get it open here.
And I just kept thinking of Carla as I read it, because I kept so for example, the 10 suggestions to stimulate the legal profession that starts on page 246 at the top of the right column. It was so interesting to notice a couple of things there, but especially number 7. Like in all the years that I'd worked with POCLAD and gone to their trainings, I didn't have any particular memory of ever hearing them talk about a local strategy until they until they started collaborating with CELDF, Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund. And their number 7, help devise theories and strategies which towns, cities, and states can use to prohibit all corporate involvement in ... So that was kind of amazing to see that they actually, because we've read a couple hundred pages already, and there's been virtually nothing about local anything. So I found that really interesting, and I loved the fact that they quoted from a whole variety of state constitutions to kind of give a diversity of that kind of language. And I was absolutely fascinated by the way that, really it starts right from the beginning, how the Supreme Court is basically apprised of what it needs to do by the power elite to make sure that, let me see if I can find the actual language that was so interesting. Well, I'll look for it while others talk. Carry on while I look for it.
Yeah, I think part of what makes that point number 7, the one that you brought up about help devise theories and strategies which towns, cities, and states can use to prohibit all corporate involvement in elections, lawmaking, selection of judges. You mentioned that there really isn't much mention of local actually up until, I guess in your mind until you've read that point. And as you were reiterating that, I was thinking about how, and also we can even think of it a bit more hyper-local, because as we've seen over the past, maybe about 20 years now, it's not just that we need to think about theories and strategies which can be implemented locally, but about how a strategy or theory implemented locally will change depending on where that locality is. So we have to think probably also in terms of how those strategies can be made flexible and how they can be hyper tailored to whatever specific county or municipality that the campaign is in. So the probably a new frontier that hasn't really, the theory behind that probably hasn't really been formulated, and it's just sort of been trial and error up until this point to, oh, okay, this is what works here in Pennsylvania, and these home rule charters, and this is what works here, this is what works here in maybe Florida, now there's like a Florida chapter. So it's really interesting to see how these strategies change depending on location.
Indeed. Oh, we just lost somebody. I found the section that I was. Let's see. It's really the whole first 2 pages of that I just found fascinating. When the briefs had settled, corporate leaders and their lawyers, among other accomplishments, had gotten the following: the federal courts to ... and they're like 8 or 10 bullet points on pages 244, 245. It's really a stunning list. And then federal judges bestowed upon corporate directors great latitude, declaring outside the pale of corporate law and therefore beyond the reach of the sovereign people what corporations actually do: decide upon investment practices, production, the technologies, industrial processes, and the organization of work. Like, on some level, I already knew all of this stuff, but somehow the way it was put together in this chapter was still mind-blowing. I can't exactly explain why. Evelyn, are you still here? Carla's
No,
okay.
Evelina is who we lost,
okay.
Unfortunately.
Because she told me that I should pause the restream, but I can't. It's not responding. Check chat.
I'm not sure.
Currently being discussed. Look at that. Jeffrey Kalle has already chatted in with a question. Jeffrey, thank you for being here listening today. This is the first time in a while that we've tried to live stream our weekly book club, and I'm hosting and I'm just learning the technical ropes, so bear with us as I struggle a little bit with that aspect. But the question Jeffrey asked was, given state and federal legislative preemption over all local ordinances, isn't the community rights movement just tilting at windmills? And the answer is no. The community rights movement is claiming all sorts of constitutional authority that comes from early revolutionary era of this country, and challenging many of the doctrines, state and federal legislative doctrines, that we consider to be illegitimate because they violate the rights of we the people. And that's what makes this movement so fascinating. Anyway, do others in the book club want to continue talking or continue with Jeffrey?
I think there's good examples of that type of revolutionary remnants, right? In the very first section that we were reviewing, and it's in on page 248 in section. This is not as crazy as it may appear. Actually, sorry, on page 249 in latent state power, there's this whole review of different rulings in which charters were revoked from corporations, There was a federal bankruptcy court considering for a law in 1984 that started with a declaration. And these are just examples of, how we did, exercise our sovereignty in these particular examples. But the list is very short here, and it's much more extensive elsewhere.
Well, I'm already discovering that I cannot both monitor the chat and deal with the OBS and pay any attention to what's being discussed in this group. So that's good information for me for future, because I didn't hear anything Carla just said, unfortunately. So hopefully the two of you coppers are her.
I'm also having a couple of technical difficulties right now. It's on you, Don. It's on you.
Oh, gee, and I'm trying to find the place in the book she was talking about. It was on 249.
Yeah, 249, the section latent state powers.
Okay.
You want to try repeating, Carla, and I'll try again. Do you mind?
Yeah. So here it's basically reminding readers that in states, and they start off with Wisconsin. For example, in Wisconsin, during the past 100 years, a corporation could not own another corporation. So this is an example of a latent state power, of a power that's been iterated in the state, but that is not actually being exercised. And it seems like the idea is here are some examples of latent state powers that we can make non-latent, that we can make active. And so that was just kind of touching on the question asked in the chat, and also touching upon your answer, Paul, of, well, no, yeah, we do have constitutional authority to manage corporations and to keep them at bay, and we actually have relics of the length in our state, in some of our state laws, that are just not being put into use.
One thing that I think is interesting about this point is that, POCLAD at the beginning, since they were doing, research primarily, really focused on this concept of revoking state charters. But, it seems to me that that's the practice of the movement proves that strategy doesn't work for whatever reason. I'm not sure, I don't actually know all of the history, but it seems like revoking state charters is not something that anybody's really seems to be engaged in. So that's presumably not impossible, but improbable in the current legal climate. But I think it's really interesting, this point that if it's true that this language still exists in state laws, that presents opportunities to challenge the status quo.
Yeah, all I can think of is what you just said, two or three words you said, for whatever reason. And I just have to know what those reasons are. The book is great, but it doesn't always list the blow-by-blow battles that occurred in the courts. Even if there was a battle, I don't even know if there was a battle. That's the thing I'm worried about.
There's something that's very uncertain about anything that is quote-unquote latent, right? It means it's there, but not very powerful. And you still have to build it. It's like it's there, but you still need to build it from scratch anyway. It's like, so, what do latent state powers, what does that even mean, right?
It'd be great to know how the corporations managed this corporate creep over the centuries. It wasn't just hiring attorneys and having more money, which is a big deal, but they had to have also had some arguments. There had to be some opposition, but I really wonder what the opposition said and what kind of movements were going on at the time, or did they just sneak it in? Don't know.
I'm having all sorts of issues with the live stream, and I'm not even able to participate. I'm really tempted to shut the live stream down so I can participate.
In another group, they actually had two people. One did all the monitoring, and the other person was the administrator, so that the administrator didn't, the moderator didn't have to be concerned with tech. It takes two people.
Agreed. We'll figure that out through a little trial and error.
I'm sorry. Was that directed to me? Because my attention is split in multiple.
No, you're doing just fine, Paul. The point that Don was trying to make is that like we need to do this in a way where one person is like streaming and another person is moderating. Like that's just, and we kind of already know that. We're just short-staffed is all. Yeah. And I'm on Twitch. I'm logged onto Twitch right now, but I'm having some connection problems.
Well,
so I guess I can't run both at the same time.
And it's not actually Twitch you should be logged into. It's Restream. Because then you can see the chat from both Twitch and YouTube. And that's why I'm struggling. Because I'm on a new platform all over again.
Well, on a positive note, I can't wait for the new book we're going to work on, Reimagining Change, because it supposedly answers some of these things we're talking about. It says how to use story-based strategy to win campaigns, build movements, and change the world. I like that. Sounds exciting.
Oh boy. Should I just stop the live stream because I can't. I'm just not functional.
If it's too difficult for you, I don't think we're losing much by doing that.
I'm not hearing what anybody's saying. All right, I'm going to stop the